Let's talk about the rape gang scandal here, and the angle I'm going to take here is that back in January, and indeed before that, the Prime Minister and his acolytes were telling us there was no need for a public inquiry into the rape gang scandal because if you felt that, you were climbing on a far-right bandwagon. I still can't quite quantify what his thinking was there. I think it was basically that he didn't fancy a public inquiry because it would make Labour look bad. Now, let's have a look at... this is Labour, a bunch of Labour people reiterating, stating that there's no need for a national inquiry. Take a look at this.
Calling for inquiries because they want to jump on a bandwagon of the far right, then that affects politics.
No, the reason we're not doing another national inquiry is because there's already been a national inquiry.
Do you want an inquiry or not?
No, Paul, I'm trying to answer your question, and the answer is no. We don't think another inquiry, after all the many inquiries that we've put victims through, is the way to tackle this.
There has been a huge amount of misinformation this week. Sadly, party political misinformation. It is just wrong.
Trevor, what is the most important thing here?
Of course, it's the position of the victims. I understand that.
It is the victims, and it's not people's hurt feelings about how they've been spoken about.
Well, there you go, Rakib. There's a montage of all these Labour luminaries saying absolutely no need for a public inquiry. Now, I'm going to play you now an excerpt from an interview I did with a very brave young man last night. Brace yourself. But this guy, this is the darkest story of this incredibly dark saga. This is the worst sexual crime scandal in British history. Now, this guy, a very brave young man called Jaden Sheeran, is the result of a rape gang rape. He bumps into his father, who's a rapist from time to time. His mother died from alcohol, destroyed and shattered by what happened to her. So this guy is the result of a rape gang rape. He's 19 years old, great young man, works hard, got a partner, got his own kid now. He told me that every day in every way, there's never a second goes by when he doesn't think about this. And he asked me to ask him about this. It's really, really dark. It's about the moment when he was born. So have a listen to this, and then we'll come back and we'll discuss why these politicians didn't think there was a need for a public inquiry. Listen to this. Now, listen, I'm just going to read out this bit of the story. I hope you don't mind, but, you know, I'm a bit of a jaded old hack, but it's not often that I read or see something that shocks me, but this shocked me to the core. This is when you were born. Jodie, your mum, apparently held you up, the baby, looked at you and said, "Take him away now, get him off me." How does that make you feel?
Obviously, it's not nice, but you have to come through it in whatever way you can. Like, I'm here now, so it's all that matters. That's what I got to think. Yeah. Well,
you know, this was obviously the shock at the time. So there you go, Rakib. He's 19 years old, still crying about that. Apart from that, he didn't cry at all, but he's got a horrific story to tell. And I see that as the dark epicenter of the rape gang rape scandal. This guy is the product of a rape gang rape. He bumps into his father regularly. His grandmother, a remarkable woman who brought him up. He did go on to forge a good relationship with his poor mum, but she was too damaged and eventually drank too much and died. But his grandmother went to the police and said, "This happened to my daughter." So the perpetrator, Jaden's dad, was arrested, was charged. Guess what? The Crown Prosecution Service subsequently dropped the case, and his grandmother went back to the police and said, "My daughter was raped by a gang in a hotel room. She came back to the house out of her mind on drink and covered in curry powder, weirdly. This is a terrible crime. The police said to her, Ange, just drop it, forget it, just let it go. So the reason I put you through that, Rakib, and indeed the audience, is when I hear politicians, even back in January, no need for a public inquiry. I just think, you listen to that story, I just think, to hell with them. To hell with them. They must have known there was a need for a public inquiry, and yet they preferred to play politics with it. That is a disgrace, isn't it?
It's a complete disgrace. And firstly, I have to make the point that Jayden is an incredibly brave and courageous young man. In terms of a national public inquiry into grooming gangs, Kevin, it's long overdue. And we can't let the Conservatives off the hook. They had 14 years. We had 14 years of Tory-led rule. They didn't hold a national statutory inquiry into grooming gangs. But the Labour Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, to suggest that those who are calling for a national statutory inquiry, I'm included in that, were looking to jump on some kind of far-right bandwagon is hugely insulting. It truly is. And I'll really make this point that perhaps there is a great deal of reluctance within the Labour Party to hold a full national public investigation into grooming gangs with statutory powers, because much of this horrific sexual exploitation abuse took place in historically Labour-controlled local authorities. Rotherham, for example, Rotherham Metropolitan Borough Council was created back in 1974. Ever since its creation, it's been controlled by Labour. If you look at Greater Manchester, very similar story. Telford and Wrekin Council, since it's been in existence, has been predominantly controlled by Labour as well. So I think that there's a degree of self-preservation there, why Labour was not interested, or rather not enthusiastic about holding a national statutory inquiry. But Baroness Casey, with her latest report, this rapid audit into group-based child sexual exploitation, after she recommended a national statutory inquiry into grooming gangs, there's nowhere to hide for the Prime Minister.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think that the Prime Minister, because Baroness Casey, Louise Casey, she's an old Labourite, I think that Keir Starmer was banking on her coming up with a report that would enable him to turn around and say to the nation, look, there isn't, it says here, there really isn't a need for a public inquiry. But Baroness Casey has made us sterner stuff. She took one look at this situation and she knew this was beyond petty politics, and that a public inquiry was called for. I mean, I don't like public inquiries. I think they tend to be too long, too expensive, and often don't really achieve very much. But there are certain issues, certain circumstances when there is no other way out, and this was one of them. You know, the rape gang scandal requires a full national investigation that a public inquiry will deliver. Now, let's go back to Keir Starmer, who kept saying that we didn't need one. And given, I just don't believe that these politicians didn't know about all these stories. The story I've just showed you. I've interviewed now, I think, 2 or 3 of the actual rape victims. You know, everybody knows their stories. I don't believe that the Labour cabinet weren't aware of the seriousness of the situation. I just think they tried to sweep it under the carpet, and the method that we know the Prime Minister used was to say that those of us, it wasn't just you, Rakib, certainly me, millions of people around the country, this requires a public inquiry. The Prime Minister's method of dismissing all of us was the same technique he used amid the Southport riots last year. These aren't protesters, they're far-right thugs. His favourite way of killing off an argument, killing off a debate. This time, to kill off this debate, it didn't succeed. His technique was to say, all of you who are calling for a public inquiry, you're climbing onto a far-right bandwagon. That is just absolutely ludicrous. Now, Beth Rigby from Sky News caught up with the Prime Minister at the G7 summit in stunning circumstances. The scenery there is amazing. The Prime Minister's performance while being interviewed on this issue. Not so amazing. Have a look at this.
You accuse politicians like Badenoch of jumping on a bandwagon for the far right. Was that misjudged to put it in those terms? Do you wish you hadn't said that now?
I was really clear that I was talking about politicians.
I know, I just said that.
Yeah, and I do think that those politicians need to answer the question, which is why, when you were in power and had the opportunity to do something,
but do you wish you hadn't
nothing?
Conflated it with right-wing bandwagon, because that's not what people's concerns about grooming gangs weren't necessarily right-wing. Do you sort of wish you hadn't said it?
I don't. I've never implied that other people with genuine concerns, and certainly not victims. I've been working with victims. I've seen firsthand
it's not
the
a
impact
right-wing
it has
bandwagon,
on
is it?
victims. But I was calling out those politicians. I mean, I am frustrated in politics when people shout and scream a lot and do nothing when they got the opportunity to do it. It's one of the worst aspects of politics, in my view.
Who's his advisor who prepares him for these interviews? Is it Coco the Clown or something? I mean, it's just ridiculous, just ridiculous. And by the way, he didn't just accuse politicians of climbing on a far-right bandwagon. That is a distortion of what he said. It was all of us. Anyone who was calling for a public inquiry, he said, was climbing onto a far-right bandwagon. He's trying to sort of change the goalpost there so it doesn't sound so bad. He should never have said it about politicians, and he certainly shouldn't have said it about the rest of us. Absolutely disgraceful, and his answers there, just pathetic.
No, absolutely. And I think any politician that tells you that we've had a national inquiry into the grooming gangs, the key point here is that we have never had a full national public investigation into the grooming gangs with statutory powers, those powers to compel witnesses to attend and to take evidence under oath. And I think a big part of a future national public inquiry with statutory powers looking into grooming gang activity is determining public sector accountability. Now, that doesn't just include local institutions such as local councils, police forces, safeguarding partnerships, and also looking at care home staff, social services. That needs to look at Whitehall as well, Kevin. That needs to include central government, and it certainly needs to include the Crown Prosecution Service as well. It's not just local government, we also need to be looking at national government.
Indeed.